Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 15910 Southeast Oatfield Road here in Milwaukee. We're located in the basement up against the front foundation wall. We're kind of straight out from the bathroom down here, right up against the wall. We have a 4-inch cast iron cleanout. I'm going to insert the camera and check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. We currently have water running. Once we get the camera in here, we're having a little trouble getting it past something. We'll zero out the foot counter. Now, we're going to drain the line off for a second here. Now, we're going to let the line drain out for a moment to have a little clearer picture here. It looks like the pipe bottom may actually be rotting out. There's a huge trough in the middle of the flow line. You can see that big edge of pipe right in front of the camera. That actually looks like the pipe material itself. I'm not sure I'll be able to get my camera over the top of that. I'll try and put a string on my camera to see if I can lift it over that. But my camera is hitting this thing. It's so sharp and wedge-shaped that my camera is not going to go over that on its own. And looking down into the cleanout here, yeah, you have a very sharp edge. This would appear to be the cast iron material itself here that's rotting out, which will happen. You can see that shape that's made there. You have rusty red cast iron and then the kind of an oval shaped black spot. My camera's getting stuck right down inside that there. I'll see if I can put a string on my camera and get over the top, but you've definitely got a spot right here that looks like it is just about worn all the way through the cast iron. And I don't think that's scale buildup. That stuff is very hard and sharp. Scale is usually, it'll often break loose when my camera runs into it. Okay, I lifted the camera head over the top of that. We'll go back and check that out when we come back. Line just transitioned there over to what appears to be 4-inch transite concrete. All right, I attempted to locate there. There is just too much traffic out in the roadway for me to safely get out into the street. So we're going to pull back here about 20 feet or so and try and relocate just so we can verify the line is going out to Oatfield and terminating at that main. And I'll try and mark things as I go. But just going throughout the line there, the cast iron pipe, we'll have a better view of it here in just a moment, but it looked like my camera was riding over an inch thick amount of scale, which typically means your pipe bottom is rotting out. But we'll have another look here in just a second. The transite concrete here looks decent. This joint though, I mean as far as the material goes, that joint does appear to be compromised. You've got a lot of staining going all the way around that joint, which generally tells you you've got groundwater seeping in through that. Not necessarily sewage escaping, because the joint is still fairly tight and you don't have hydraulic pressure inside the sewer line. But on the outside, when you have especially heavy saturation in the ground, when you have rainstorms, the ground swells and it creates hydraulic pressure and forces stuff through the pipe joint there. And that thing is extremely stained. It looks like it doesn't happen a lot during the summertime, but during the winter, fall months, rainy season is when you'd see water dripping through that thing if we were doing this at that time of year. But that staining only comes from an open joint. You'll notice the other joints we've gone past are clean. So, and a line that's this age, I generally don't recommend spot repairing it. That part that's likely in the roadway, we're going to go locate here at 65 feet to see if we're at the curb yet or around the curb. But if that whole transite section's under the road, just with that one joint there, if you decide to fix it, I would look into an epoxy liner system and line the entire this whole transite section, just fully updated at once. To go out and spot repair that one joint at this point in the line's existence is kind of a waste of time and money. But that joint is not affecting flow at this point. If a joint, kind of the nightmare scenario is if a joint is pulling enough groundwater and dirt through it, it can cause hydro erosion. Your worst case scenario is a sinkhole is created, which is fairly uncommon and rare, but it can happen. But what happens more often than not is over time it pulls dirt from outside the pipe, which erodes the support from under the sewer line, and then the line starts to drop and settle, which I haven't seen any of that yet. So it doesn't look like it's doing it to a significant portion, but it is an open pipe joint. I do have to recommend a repair on that. And so if you're going to go through the effort of repairing that spot there, I wouldn't even mess with spot repairing it. I would just update the whole transite section. I do it by epoxy liner, which is trenchless. You would not have to tear the road up. Alrighty, so right here at 65 feet, I'm picking the locator up about 3 feet out from the curb in the roadway. And the depth here I'm getting is around 4 foot 2 inches deep. There's a lot of change in the ground. I'm sure that depth will change significantly here once we start going through the yard. The yard is built up a lot. But that's the best locate I can do. Beyond that, I'm in the roadway and there's too much traffic. I need someone stopping traffic out here to accomplish much in the road. So right around 62 feet or so, maybe 61 feet is where the curb is at. In this part of town, though, generally the homeowner is typically responsible all the way to the main, not just to the street curb, like you would be in like Multnomah County. And then a little bit of standing water there. That standing water is completely insignificant. Even if you lined it and retained a little bit of that water, I would have no problem with that. That's about as tiny as a belly gets right there. But it looks like the transition is at the curb here, because about 61 feet, that's not uncommon for the line to transition materials at the street edge. So it looks like 61 feet is our curb. And this cast iron that we're going through here is looking very pitted all the way around top and bottom. The hard part is you can get some rot going on underneath, buildup and stuff, and you won't necessarily see it until it's worn through. When I start seeing that much wearing, though, right at the start, that often cast iron wears pretty consistently throughout. So if some of this cast iron doesn't have that problem, it's probably not too far down the road before it's going to. That's why I'm going to likely recommend a full update here, not just a single spot repair. All right, but now we're up into the yard in the area where the ground is built up higher than the street. I'm getting around 6.5 feet deep here. The locator's bouncing a little bit. It might be as deep as 7 feet, but somewhere in that ballpark. And I always recommend relocating before you do any digging. Double check markings and depths and everything. In spots like this, like right where we're at now, if you can notice here, we're just visually looking at it, the bottom of the pipe here is kind of flat looking. It's not rounded. That generally means you've got scale buildup in the flow line area, and underneath all that scale, you can have rotted pipe. So it's not that it's not still conveying sewage, but it looks like I can see a ledge or an edge here right where the pipe comes down and meets some of this standing water here. So it does appear that not the entire line is completely rotted out, but it looks like it's getting very close to that. And not everywhere was flattened out like that, but there are a few areas where I'm seeing that. You have another area, you can see my camera going over this big lump here. It's going to lift it up in the air. So that pipe bottom there looks like it's starting to go on you. All right, the camera here, if you're looking at the front of the home from the street, the line comes out right around the middle of the home, and then it veers over towards the left side of the property. It's right here where the line straightens out at the left side of the property and starts shooting straight out to the street. Getting around 8 feet deep there. Yeah, you have a big, huge lump of scale right there in the flow line. It's almost an inch thick in that area. And you've got some standing water here. We don't get a great view of it, but as I approach that standing water, it looks like I can see an edge on the metal. I think your pipe bottom here is likely wearing out, and it's causing the water to pool inside of it. And those spots make me nervous. I'm not going to go back through there because I can't tell if the pipe bottom's gone. The camera can get stuck inside those ruts. Yeah, another spot here where very obvious wear and scale is taking place. I just did my last paint marking there before the line goes under a bush out front. And depth-wise, I'm getting around 8 foot 3 inches there near the foundation wall of the home. So more, and you can see right there where the pipe's starting to wear through. There's a trough in the flow line. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to recommend a full update here. The most concerning part of the sewer line as far as functionality goes is definitely the cast iron. The transite pipe is still functioning very nicely in regards of conveying sewage, even with that compromised joint. But the cast iron is what makes me very nervous here. We've already got a spot that is almost completely worn through here right off the bat. You can actually see where the pipe is just broken away there from the camera going over the top of it. So that right there, you've got maybe, I mean, if you're lucky, a 1/16 of an inch of cast iron before you're right into the dirt. But the other thing to be concerned about is I'm looking at this trough here, and it's going back under the floor. This clean out does not let me go backwards. What I would highly recommend, at this point, I recommend all of the cast iron main line be updated. If you're trying to see if all of it is rotted out, you'd have to do a toilet pull or something of that nature to get under the floor. At this point, I've seen enough worn out cast iron here and evidence of rotting pipe that I would recommend all of the cast iron under the floor, all the way out to the main lateral or near the street edge, be updated and re-scoped to check the work. I would consult a liner company. You might be able to do a trenchless liner on this thing. I would have them take a look at it and see what they think. I don't see hardly any standing water for the exception of areas where you have heavy scale buildup. And that can simply just be the pipe bottom rotting out on you and creating a trough that water's getting caught in and not necessarily where the line has sunk and you have a grade problem. So I would look into that repair process and see if that's something that can be done. That it would make for a cheaper update more than likely, especially if you're going to update under the floor of the home. But it makes me nervous to only update the exterior and not the interior. This stuff often gets worse and worse as you get back into the home, where water volume is at its highest, where the temperature of the water is at its hottest. It just tends to wear the metal out that much faster. In total, I would recommend a full update from the rear sewer stack at the back of the house all the way out to the main lateral connection. At the very least, I'd recommend all cast iron pipe inside and outside the home be updated. The transite stuff in the street, that's up to you if you want to leave that be for now. Especially if you're going a liner route, it becomes cheaper and cheaper the more distance you go. And I don't care if it's done by liner or traditional excavation. However, I recommend it be updated. That's just an option that may end up saving some money and be a little less invasive. But make sure a rescope is done after any repair work to check the work.